Blizzard Entertainment plans to release Diablo II Resurrected on September 23rd, 2021. About 6 weeks prior to this launch, players were given a very short window to stress test this game through a beta version. The following is my honest review of the bugs, glitches, and changes that players like myself have noticed in this beta version. I feel like a lot of the reviews out there are very nitpicky and surround things such as cosmetics, looks, sounds, where your party is on the screen. In this video, I'm gonna go over many things that I noticed that are quite a bit bigger than that. Let's dive in. I want to start by saying that I absolutely love how this game looks and sounds. Obviously, there are small things, but if nothing on that front changed, I'd be okay with it. Additionally, I love how Blizzard has handled character names on Battle.net. Now, practically anybody can have any name, which discourages all of the name farming that we saw in the traditional LOD version of Diablo II. Amazing job. While the game was definitely fun to play for the first phase of the beta, it doesn't come without its criticisms. I apologize if some of these sound harsh, but they need to be said. I'm not one to just throw out problems without a solution, so I do have a suggestion at the end of the video. First and foremost, let's get the elephant out of the room. It's extremely hard to fully test Diablo 2 when we're stuck in Act 2 normal. We can't test things like 200% FCR breakpoints or endgame IAS setups if we can't get past Duriel in normal. If this and the following week of beta testing is all that Blizzard plans to do, I think we're in trouble. There are many other things that some people might see as small issues that are actually far bigger than they seem on the surface. Let's start with the hostile button. First of all, make a sound on the opposing player's screen when they get hostiled by somebody. Just to really put this to the test, I went around PKing people in public games, and most of them were unaware that anybody was hostile to them until I showed up on their doorstep in the Tomb games. This is completely unacceptable. Players need to have plenty of time to be warned that a player intends to come and PK them. You absolutely 100% need to warn players when they get hostiled with the traditional hostile sound so that when shitheads like me go around PKing in public games, people are well aware of what's about to happen. I seriously fear for people on hardcore if that's not changed before launch. That might be low-hanging fruit, and maybe this next thing is as well. On the topic of hostility, D2R allows you to press the hostile button on somebody while you're outside of town. Granted, you will get kicked from the game if you do that, but it shouldn't be allowed. Instead, the button that allows you to hostile a player should just be read as though they couldn't be hostile because they're too low of a level. That's how it is in LOD, and it's probably the right thing to do for D2R. One of my biggest criticisms surrounds weapon swapping. I've noticed that Blizzard changed something significant about this between the alpha and the beta version. If you remember my absolute cynical laughter from the first time that I weapon swapped on alpha, it was mainly because I was super impressed with how weapon swapping translated to D2R. The animation was immediate and canceled all other animations when you hit W to swap weapons. And by all animations, I mean even the weapon swap animation itself should be canceled if you hit weapon swap while it's happening. I know that sounds weird and like, oh, that must be so breakable. It's not. In fact, players have relied on this to escape the absolutely broken FHR frames that some character classes have when it comes to navigating through the game, the Throne of Destruction, getting stuck in soul locks, getting stuck in Mind Blast locks in PvP. Granted, it is a bit of a glitch that it cancels all other animations, but trust me, it's a good glitch. I would compare the whole situation to remaking Pac-Man from back in the day and patching the glitch where spamming your joystick back and forth would confuse the monsters when they're about to lock you in. Sure, you fixed something that was probably a glitch, but you also made the game unwinnable in certain circumstances. And while we're on the subject of weapon swapping, the sound for weapon swapping is loud and obnoxious. You might not notice it when you just do it a couple of times, but if you figure that high-level PvP players will be spamming this to get out of locks, it doesn't necessarily have the same ring to it when you hear it in that form. And because of this change that was made to the weapon swap animation, now all weapon swaps that interrupt other actions must be done frame perfectly. This creates a problem when you lock onto a target further away and you need to swap your weapons to either shoot a guided arrow at them or to use really any other attack in general. And because I know people are gonna ask this, no, that has nothing to do with swap casting. As some people might have noticed, swap casting was extremely easy when this was the case in beta. And if we're truly being real to the original D2 LOD, swap casting on Battle.net should not be a thing. Basically, just go back to how weapon swapping was working in alpha. You had it correct. Upon joining my first few games in the beta, I was surprised that certain things were still an issue. First of all, the chat bug. The chat bug has made its way to D2 Resurrected. In case you're not familiar, the chat bug was something notorious on Battle.net for making it so that you could not chat in-game to other players. It just simply wouldn't work. You'd type a message, it wouldn't show up. Many players thought for sure this would be fixed in Diablo II Resurrected, but unfortunately within the first few games, most people had the chat bug active in their D2R beta. And while we're on the topic of things not showing up in chat, friends messaging doesn't work anymore. The way that you would do this is if you have a friends list on Battle.net, you would type /F space M space your message. You could message everybody on your friends list. You could message certain players. It doesn't seem like this works in D2R, and it was definitely a nice feature. Also surrounding the chat, I just want to say I don't give a fuck who joined a trade channel. This is a waste of my mental sanity to continually see this while I'm in game. Unless Blizzard finds a way to notify me of insane trade deals in the trade lobby, I really don't give a shit about much that happens outside of the game or outside of my friends list. Also, I don't know whose idea it was to put the password in the party screen for this, but that was the worst idea you've had yet. Do you want this game to be streamed or not? Anyone who opens up the party screen and invites someone to be in their party, or if they're in a PvP game and want to hostile people in the game, they have to reveal the game's password to everybody that's watching. And it isn't like you can just put a password blocker up over this. When you bring the party screen up, it covers half your screen, and the password falls dead in the middle. So unless you want some really weird looking streams for people that stream multiplayer, you should probably take that entire idea and scrap it. This next criticism we also covered in alpha testing, but it still exists in the beta, and I think I know why. Let's start with the problem. First of all, pressing Alt should override your ability to click and interact with anything. Alt is also known as the Show Items button. Currently in D2R in the beta version, if you're holding the Show Items button or Alt, you can actually interact with just about anything in the environment. If you click on a monster, you'll run up to it, which is not a bad thing, but then you'll attack it. That is definitely a bad thing. Also, while you're holding Alt, you can enter a different area. I found this to be an absolute pain in the ass when items would drop outside of Duriel's chamber right next to the entrance to Duriel's chamber. A couple of times I accidentally clicked Duriel's chamber while holding Alt, which in LOD would not make me enter Duriel's chamber. But from that slight misclick, I then have to open up a TP back to town, run back to the outside of the chamber, try to get the item on the ground, and hope I don't misclick again. That is only a very small example of how bad this is. It's also extremely terrible in PvP. One of the ways that players avoid accidental name locks in PvP is by holding Alt or Show Items. This ensures that if you're casting skills such as Whirlwind, that you don't accidentally lock onto your opponent, and then they can just walk across the map and shoot you to death or hit you with ranged attacks because you're locked on and you can't do anything. It's like I said, I think I know why this exists, and it has to do with one of the quality of life changes that Blizzard is trying to implement into D2R. Some people are going to hate me for saying this, but I think it has to do with the always show items feature that's in the game. This basically allows the game to hold Alt or activate the show items button in the background perpetually and still interact with the environment. This is a bad change. I'm not saying some people won't find that useful. I'm saying it breaks an important mechanic of the game. So Blizzard, if you can't fix that, you should probably can it. Another concept that we introduced in the alpha testing video was the concept of map centering when an additional screen was brought up on the player's side. For example, if you bring up the character screen or the skill screen, the X position on the map will shift out from under a player's feet. It definitely makes navigating the map through CT tellying very difficult. The way to fix this is just to fix the map overlay to the exact same frame of reference that you fixed the cursor to. The cursor does stay under the player's feet even though you bring up another screen. So all you've got to do is when a player has the centered map active, fix that to the exact same frame of reference as the cursor. I feel like this video will in no way touch on all of the things that need to change before D2R is officially released. I think if Blizzard continues as planned with the launch, it's going to be a shit show. Will it be fun to play even through the bugs and inconsistencies? Absolutely. But what is the right thing to do here? I want to say this directly to Blizzard. I know I'm a tough guy to agree with. I know the way I say things, the way I do things, causes a lot of controversy. But if nothing else, I'm a passionate player of Diablo II. I know it's very difficult to manage this game with all of the different people who have attacked it through the years. And I also understand and I'm aware of how tough times are for Blizzard as a company right now. Blizzard, here's what I think you should do. Instead of releasing the game on September 23rd, you should do a real beta. Open up the entire game, open it up to everybody that wants to play, and keep it open for a reasonable amount of time for people to test it, much like you did with Diablo Immortal. Then, update the real issues as they present themselves. Do it live. I don't care if you have to patch it every day with new game-breaking things that have been discovered and reported. Doing that can allow a collaborative approach from new players, from old players, and directly with Blizzard and Vicarious Visions. I think that type of collaboration will allow us to get this right. And when I say update the real problems, I mean the real problems. You just have to know, people are going to complain about anything. You guys are the artists of this game. It already looks 1,000 times better than the original. You've got that. You've got it in the bag. Stop worrying about that. That's the type of thing, the cosmetics, the low-hanging fruit, is the type of things that you can easily adjust after the game is released without really much kickback or uprising in the community. But if you don't get the feel of the game right, you're gonna lose people right out the gate. So listen to the feedback from people who know the mechanics of the game. I know plenty of them in our community who have submitted tickets to Blizzard. Those are the people that know the mechanics of this game. And they're bringing those to your attention because they have recognized them as something important throughout the years. So my suggestion would be, in order to keep things on par with the release date and really make it feel like a release, but also buy you some time to fix the things, the many things that people are noticing, is just have a real beta test on September 23rd. I'm just saying that's a suggestion. Obviously it has its challenges as well, but I think it might be a step in the right direction. Blizzard, if you heard this and sat through it, I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone else for watching this video. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you in the next one.